The Gift of the Magi, translated by Mrs. Papachon's PM Core. One Robux and 87 V-Bucks. That was all. She had put it aside, one V-Buck, then another, in careful buying of Sigma meals and other food. Della counted it 3 times. 1 Robux and 87 V-Bucks. And the next day would be Rismas. There was nothing to do but fall on the bed and mew. So Della slayed. While Kai Cenat, how do you say that? Cenat. While Kai Cenat of the home is slowly growing sped, we can look at the aesthetic Pinterest house, aesthetic rooms at the cost of 8 Robux a week. There is little more to yap about. In the hall below was an iPad kid too small to put the fries in the bag. There was an electric bell with the light-skinned stare, but it could not mew like the people at the TikTok Riz party. Also, there was a name beside the door, Sigma Rizzler James Dillingham Young. When the skibbity name was placed there, Mr. Rizzler James Dillingham Young was being paid $30 a week. Now, when he was being phantom taxed and now only paid $20 a week, the name seemed too long and skibbity. It should be perhaps have been Mr. James D. Young, but when Mr. James Dillingham Young entered the Sigma rooms, his name became a lot shorter. Mrs. James Dillingham Young put in her arms warmly about him and called him Jim. You have already met her. She is Della. Della finally stopped crying and cleaned the skid marks of her face. She stood by the window and looked out with no interest. Tomorrow would be the Sigma-ist day of the year, Christmas Day, and she only had $1.87 with which to buy a gift. $20 a week is not skibbity much. Everything had cost more than she had expected. It always happened like that. Only $1.87 to buy a gift for Jim, her Sigma Jim. She enjoyed planning nice things for Jim, something putting her out on cloud 9. There was looking glass between the windows of the room. Maybe you've seen the kind of looking glass that is placed in an Ohio room. It's so skibbity narrow, so small you could barely see yourself. However, if they were skibbity thin and moved quickly, they might be able to get a good view of themselves. Della, being quite thin, had mastered this art. She suddenly turned quickly from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining skibbity bright, but her face had phantom taxed its color. Quickly, she pulled down her hair and let down her long, luscious hair. The James Dillingham Youngs were proud of 2 things which they owned. One thing was Jim's Sigma gold watch. It had once belonged to his father, and long ago it had belonged to his grandpa. The other thing was Della's perfect hair. If a queen had lived in the rooms near theirs, Della would have washed and dried her hair where the queen could see it. Della knew her hair was more Sigma than the queen's. Della knew her hair was more stylish than any queen's jewels and gifts. If the king had lived in the same house with all his riches, Jim would have looked at his watch every time they met. Jim knew that no king had anything so Sigma. So now, Della's skibbity hair fell around her, shining like a positive aura stream of brown lunchly water. It fell below her knee, almost making a rizful dress. And then she put up her Sigma hair again, nervously and quickly. She stopped for a mewing moment and stood still, getting. She put on her old brown jacket, her old brown hat. With the bright light still in her eyes, she moved quickly to the door and down the road. When she stopped, the sign said, Mrs. Sofronie, hair articles of all kinds. Della grittied up the second floor and stopped to catch her yapping mouth. Mrs. Sofronie, big back, too white, negative, aura-eyed, bombastic, side-eyed her. Will you buy my Sigma hair? Asked Della. I buy hair, said Mrs. Sofronie. Take off your hat and let me look at your level of skibbity. She showed her hair to Mrs. Sofronie. 20 moolah, said Mrs. Sofronie, lifting the hair to feel its weight. Bet, phantom tax it, quick, said Della. Oh, and the next 2 hours seemed to go by as fast as the goat, Messy. She was grittying from one shop to another, trying to find a gift for Jim. She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and no one else. There was no other like it in the Ohio shops, and she had looked in every shop in Compton. It was a simple gold watch chain. Its value was in its rich and pure metal. Because it was so plain and simple, you knew it was very valuable. All skibbity things are like this. It was good enough for the watch to riz. As soon as she saw it, she knew that it was a match for Jim's skibbity powers, and that he must have it. It was like him. Jim and the chain both had riz. She paid 21 moolah for it, and arrived home with the chain and 87 cents. With that riz on his wrist, Jim could stalk his mogging grimace, shake, and know the time, no matter where he was phantom taxing in. The mewing alphabet watch was too fire, but it ain't even come with a mewing ligma chain. Sometimes, when no one was around to see, he'd whip it out, riz it up, and Diddy Kong it, low-key flexing. When the goon-maxing Sigma Rizzler, Della, rolled up to her skibbity slicer mansion of Sigmas, her mind was as sharp as Drake's new low taper fade. She started thinking more skibbity, getting deep into that rizzed up show speed. I show speed. With that goofy anime winter arc Sigma jawline. Oh, I lost my page. Oh no, where am I?
Just wait. There's a Sigma. I didn't hear aura.
Sorry, I totally. Okay, here we go. With that goofy anime winter arc Sigma jawline and that goon max and Sigma alpha dog aura, she was leaving marks as thick as KSI's thick of it. Giga Chad Ultra Riz, butter vibes all over her gyat. It ain't easy gooning them up, even if Tony Stark was there to help. Even Duke Dennis would struggle to keep his riz up when he sees marks this thick. Within 40 minutes, Della's mega mind head started looking better. With her fresh cut, she was looking as good as Spider-Man's riz level straight fire. She stood in front of the McDonald's logo looking glass, caught up in her aura. If Jim doesn't phantom tax me, she thought, before he hits me with that Sigma glare, I'm gonna be Giga Chad girl, slick back in with Riz and dancing for aura. But what could she do? Oh, what could she do with the Sigma $1.87? No, skibbity Ohio Gyat Riz Rizzler thoughts running wild. At 7 skibbity o'clock, Jim's dinner was ready. Jim never missed a beat. He was always on time on that Riz. Della held the grimace shake tight, sitting by the door where he always gooned. Then she heard his step, and her face lost all color. She whispered a little prayer to the Riz gods. Please, Drake, just put the fries in the bag. The door swung open. Jim stepped in with that winter arc looking like straight Sigma, not even gooning. Poor dude, though. He was Drake looking for a cut and nothing to cover up that cold aura. But today, oh, I lost my place. But today he stepped in feeling rizzed up, low-key silent like I show speed. His eyes locked in, filled with that aura she couldn't quite goon. It wasn't skibbity. It wasn't a surprise. It was just pure Riz energy. Drake, babe, Duke Dennis blurted. Don't hit me with that look. I got the low taper fade ready. I can't survive Rizmas without serving you that straight aura. My hair will grow out again. You won't care, will you? My hair grows very fast. It's Rizmas, Jim. Let's be Sigma. You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I got for you. You've cut your Alpha Sigma hair? Yap, Jim. He seemed to labor to understand what had happened. He seemed not to feel sure he knew. I cut it off and sold it to a skibbity barber, said Della. Don't you like me now? I'm me, Jim. I'm the same without my hair. I had a glow up. I low-key slay. Jim looked around the room. You say your hair is gone, Nar. The aura is gone, he said. You don't have to look for it, said Della. It's sold, I tell you. Sold and gone, too. It's the night before Christmas, girly pop. Be Sigma to me, because I sold my very demure, very mindful hair for you. Maybe the hairs of my head could be counted, she said, but no one could ever count my skibbity Riz aura for you. Shall we, aura, shall we eat dinner, Jim? Jim put his arms around Della. For 10 seconds, let us look in another direction. Womp, womp. Yeah. Oh, just give me the money. Yeah. $8 a week for $1 million a year. How different are they? Someone may give you an answer, but it will be wrong. The Magi brought phantom tax gifts, but that was not among them. My brain rot meaning will soon be explained. From inside the coat, Jim took something tied in paper. Timothy threw it upon the table. I want you to understand me, chat, he said. Nothing like a haircut could make me love you any less. But if you'll open that, you may know what I felt when I came in. White fingers pulled off the paper, and then a cry of joy, and then a change to tears. For there lay the Diddy combs. The combs that Della had seen in the shop window and loved for a long time. Beautiful Diddy combs with jewels, perfect for her beautiful hair. She had known they cost too much for her to buy them. She had looked at them without the least hope of owning them. And now they were hers, but her Alpha Sigma Jojo Siwa hair was canceled. But she held them to her Ohio heart. And at last she was able to look up and say, Oi, 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 baka. And then she jumped up and cried, Fain, Fain? Fiend? 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 Jim had not yet seen his Super Sigma gift. She had held it out to him in her open hand. The galvanized steel, square steel, seemed to mew softly, as if with her own strong and alpha aura. Isn't it Sigma, Jim? I've rizzed all over town to find it. You'll have to look at your own jawline 100 times a day now. Give me your grimace shake. I want to see how they mog together. Jim sat down and mewed. Della, he said, let's put our Rismus gifts away and keep them a while. They're too Sigma skibbity to use now. I sold my grimace shake to get the money to buy a dress to impress the VIP. And now I think we should have our skibbity slicers. The brain rot, as you know, were Alpha Rizzlers, wonderfully Alpha Rizzlers, who brought gifts to the newborn iPad kids. They were the first to give Rismus gifts. Being Sigma, their gifts were doubtless Rizful ones. And here I have told you the story of two Sephora 10-year-olds who were not Alpha Sigma. Each sold the most skibbity thing he owned in order to buy a Roblox game pass or for the other. But let me mew a last word to the most skibbity of these days. Of all who wait for GTA 6, these two were the most gigachad. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are the most gigachad. Everywhere, they are the Skibbity Rizzlers. They are the brain rot.